Hello, ladies. Welcome. Welcome. It is so nice to be talking about travel again. Excuse me. We can see your names on the bottom of the screen, but we can't see your smiling faces. And I surely do wish that we could. To those of us that are, those of you that are joining us for the first time, welcome to Women with Wings. We're delighted to have you here tonight. And we're going to talk about Newfoundland. Before we get started, I wanted to give you just a little bit of a brief update about Women with Wings. We do have a tour to the Yukon that we've just posted. That's going to be led by Jennifer Hewlett, and it's a 4-night trip, very similar to the program that we ran in 2020, which was sold out and went over very, very well. So if you're interested in that, there is a Zoom next week. You can find the details on our website and join from there. We'd love to have you join us. In September, Jen's going back to France, and this time it's a bike and barge and hiking trip. We have just one single spot left, and that's a fantastic tour. Again, this was one we were going to run in 2020 and had to cancel because of COVID. So do have a look at that. And Portugal, Hannah is going to be going off to Portugal for a 2-center hiking trip next October. She has just a few seats left, but I know she'd be very happy to chat with you about it if you're interested. So pop onto the website, do your reading, contact us. We'd be happy to chat with you and fill in blanks at any time. And now we're going to talk about Newfoundland. First of all, I know that we've been waiting for a long time for the information. We've learned a lot. Newfoundland's had a heck of a time coming out of COVID. And of course, because it's not really open for tourism 12 months a year, it's sometimes hard to get answers quickly, but we have finally put together what we think is really an ideal program, thanks in part to Kathy Moore, who's with us tonight, and we'll be talking to you about her experiences there. She was born, bred, and educated in Newfoundland. I know that you've read the itinerary, at least I'm assuming that you have, so we're not going to go through it point by point, but we will be going through it day by day. We've got some great slides. We're going to fill in some of the blanks, and we'll leave a few blanks because that's what we do with Women with Wings. We like to leave time to bring in some surprises on site. So with that, Hannah, would you start the slideshow?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a schematic here, and our tour takes us from Corner Brook on the west side to St. John's on the east side. The airport that's closest to Corner Brook is Deer Lake. It's about a 40-minute drive from the airport into Corner Brook. So Hannah's going to be talking about flights a little bit later in the evening, but rest assured that we will provide transfers to get you from Deer Lake to Corner Brook, where we spend our first night. It's quite likely that you'll be arriving late at night. We know that, they're prepared for that, and that's just the way it is when we're traveling that far east. This is a picture of the Glenmill Inn, which is the hotel that we'll be using in Corner Brook for the night. It's kind of a neat story there because you can see the original hotel and what it looks like now. And I like this slide because it gives you a really clear indication of what rooms look like in some of the properties that we're going to be going to. They're clean and they're simple. They're reliable. They'll serve a good breakfast, but they're not fancy. We have a couple of what we call fancy hotels later on in the program, but for the most part, this is fairly similar to the type of accommodation that we're going to be seeing. On Tuesday, we're off to Port au Choix, and we'll be making our way up the coast. And here we have Arches Provincial Park, and Kathy's going to join us now and talk a little bit about that.
Oh, hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about arches and how a little bit about kind of how those arches came to be. Newfoundland is really divided into 3 sections geographically. There's the western section with the Great Northern Peninsula that you're going to head up towards St. Anthony. And then that's the Western District, and then the Central District and the Eastern District. And the Western District, it originally belonged to, well, really, 600 million years ago or so. It was part of the Canadian continent. They call that now Laurentia. And then the central part of Newfoundland. So it was attached to Newfoundland. It was attached to Labrador and attached to kind of Quebec, they were all up against that part of land. And the middle of Newfoundland was the ocean floor. And then when you get out to the east coast and the Avalon Peninsula, St. John's and Bonavista and all that. That was part of Africa. So they all got crunched up together, and that's why Newfoundland, because there was a lot of colliding going on. You've got some very odd geographical and geological anomalies in Newfoundland that you'll find really interesting as you go along. And these arches were created, they're on both coasts. They were created by glaciers receding. The one big Laurentia glacier covered most of Canada and part of Newfoundland, including this part. And then the rest of Newfoundland was covered by its own little shield, and they drained in different ways, and the draining glaciers created these arches around the island. So that's my story about the arches. There might be some more pictures of them as you go along, I think, too.
Hannah, oh, there we go. Okay, so we continue then up to Port au Choix, and here you've got a picture. Hannah, can you go back to a one shot, please? Sorry about that. Okay, here we begin to see the charm of some of the small villages that we're going to be going in and out of. And we'll be doing a lot of this throughout the trip, both on the west side and the east side. But this gives you an idea of what we've got coming up. Once we get to Port au Choix, we will have a day tour. Now here, in many of the places, we have local guides that are going to be coming in and giving us tours as we go through. We have a driver guide for the entire program, who is a local, of course, but we also bring in step-on guides to really bring some of these different places to life. So that'll be the case when we're in Port au Choix. Okay, there's a National Historic Site there, so we'll definitely be stopping here. And just to give you an idea, this day is about 3 hours driving time in total.
Oh, I'm really excited that you're going to the Port Rich Lighthouse. That's called a Pepper Pot Lighthouse, and it's a Canadian heritage site. But the interesting part of this is that it was built to protect, well, not really, but kind of, the French fleet that would have been coming out of Quebec and up the St. Lawrence, and the fishermen that were coming out of the St. Lawrence. The fastest way to get to Europe is up that French coast of Newfoundland, the Great Northern Peninsula. All along there was the French coast. And then they'd have to go through the Strait of Belle Isle. I believe you're going to cross that in a little while. But so that's the fastest way to get to Europe, not down around the south of Newfoundland. If you're in Quebec, you'd go up the coast of Newfoundland, and it was treacherous because you're running into the Labrador Current, right, coming off of Greenland and down off Baffin Island, and that current is very strong. So that's an exciting area going through there, and there was lots of shipwrecks. So they finally built this Pepper Pot Lighthouse out at Point Rich and you know, on the French coast of Newfoundland. So I haven't been there yet. I'd like to go there. So I hope you like it.
Okay, here's just a shot of the Sea Echo Motel in Port au Choix. It's charming, clean and comfortable, and I think probably everything that we need. Okay, now we're going to make our way up to the northern tip of the island to St. Anthony, which is where we'll likely see the first of the icebergs. Is that right, Kathy?
Yeah, they're coming down off of Greenland, as you probably all know. And June is really like the ideal time for icebergs. And so you start to see them there, and they'll come down St. Anthony. These pictures of the village, all Newfoundland's like that. That's probably one fella's house, and his son built the house up the road, and there's probably not even roads there. There's 2 or 3 houses probably on one plot of land. But the icebergs then will come down the coast of Newfoundland and all the way along in June. They're coming off Greenland. They're moving down fast with the Labrador Current. If you're flying over to Europe, sometimes you'll be able to pick that out as clear as a bell, and Newfoundland as well as clear as the bell. So the icebergs you're going to see, then they run up on shore. They'll come right into St. John's Harbor. It's an ideal time for icebergs. I hope you really see lots of them. They do make it a bit cold and foggy, but just kind of like Vancouver, if you wait 10 minutes, the weather changes.
Boy, that's the truth.
Especially in Newfoundland, it's quite windy. Expect it to be windy. It's almost always windy. You're right out in the middle of the Atlantic, as far east as you could possibly get in North America and Newfoundland.
St. Anthony's, by the way, is where the Vikings initially set foot on land at 1000 AD. So there's a huge amount of history there. So it'll be nice to have a local step-on guide bringing that all to life for us, for sure. Okay. So we thought long and hard about whether or not we should include Labrador on this trip, because although it's only about a 40-minute crossing or 45-minute crossing, it does take up a fair amount of time by the time we get to the port, cross, get settled in the hotel. But it was very clear that that's what people wanted. So we are going to make it to Labrador. So we have what we hope will be a really smooth crossing. We'll be prepared for everything. We'll tell you what you need to bring in terms of clothing to make sure that you're comfortable for the whole trip, and we'll make our way across. When we get over to the other side, we will be doing some tours with a local guide, but we're also going to have the opportunity to do some hiking. So we're really looking forward to that. We try to build light hikes in everywhere we go, wherever we can, but this is not something that's a forced march, and it's not something that you have to participate in if you don't want to, but the opportunity to get outside and experience things with your feet on the ground, definitely be there for you for sure. This is a shot from the historic site at Red Bay. This is on the Labrador side, so you get an idea of what we'll be seeing there. And again, these are shots from the inside of the museum. And tonight we have dinner at the Whalers Resort, Whalers Hotel. So we're really looking forward to that. That should be a great meal. I want to talk a little bit now about accommodation. I know we've said it is simple. One thing that we've heard from other agents is it does occasionally happen, that we will arrive and there would be a king size bed, not two twins. Now, obviously we always want twin beds for these tours because we've got two women that are traveling. But I just want to say fair notice, if it happens, we've done everything we can to avoid it, and it probably won't, but just wanted to make that clear. And that's the accommodation that we have there. Now, the next day we make our way back to Newfoundland and work our way down to Rocky Harbour. And Rocky Harbour is going to be the center where we're going to be staying for our visit in Grossmoor National Park. So here we've got a shot of the lighthouse there. And coming up, we've got, this is another lighthouse. This is Lobster Cove Lighthouse. So you're going to begin to see what some of the geography looks like in Rocky Harbour and in Grossmoor Park. So you can see the Ocean View Hotel's good size hotel, a little bit more modern, up to date. And here are some absolutely stunning shots coming up of Grossmoor. So Kathy, you made an interesting comment about the top of those areas actually being underwater at one time, is that right?
Yeah, the lands collided so much, those continents, when, when they created kind of Newfoundland. They created Newfoundland. That's what it was all about. No, but there's actually ocean floor that's right up on top of those tablelands.
Wow. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Okay, a couple more shots of Grossmoor so you can get an idea of what the geography looks like. And here's a really good shot of one of the walks that we're going to be taking. So for those of you that have been asking about, how much elevation is involved in some of these hikes, there are quite a few that are really, really manageable. So this is a lovely way to kind of get out and enjoy it. There's of course a UNESCO World Heritage Site there, so we'll be taking advantage of that with the guide. We're going to get out of Bombay on a boat trip, one of many boat trips. And this, I think, will be one of the highlights of the whole trip. From everybody I've spoken to, they say it's absolutely stunningly beautiful. And it's where they take a lot of the pictures from the Newfoundland Tourist Board. So that's Bombay. Out on the boat, oh my goodness, we're going to have the Screech in ceremony, and you can see what's going on here. We kiss the cod, and then have a drink of the Screech. So the only thing I can think of that would be worse than this was when we had to drink from the frozen toe in the Yukon last year. But anyway, it'll be fun. It's one of the things you have to do when you're in Newfoundland for sure. After that, we're going to make our way over to Gander. And so these shots are clearly of people that are participating and come from away. Gander, of course, is where 7,000 people were welcomed by not many more than that during 9/11. So an amazing history that we'll have a chance to kind of dig into while we're there for sure. They will see the Aviation Museum there. We're going to be staying at Sinbad's Hotel for a couple of nights. So you can see this is one of the nicer hotels, very comfortable. And that day we have about 4 hours total driving time. So just to give you some idea, when we have a long drive, we'll be stopping. So don't be worried about needing to use the facilities or anything like that. We'll make sure that everybody's comfortable. And then we make our way to Twillingate. So here again, this is where we'll probably begin to run into other icebergs. Kathy, any comments about that?
Yeah, you know, if you look at a map of Newfoundland, it looks like somebody sitting in a chair, and you're going to go up the Great Northern Peninsula. You have no choice but to come back down. There's nothing really, no choices. That's why you're going up first and coming almost back to where you were. But in that lap, that area, if somebody was sitting down, that's Notre Dame Bay. Twillingate is one of the islands in Notre Dame Bay, and it catches the icebergs. So as they come down off the Great Northern Peninsula and from Greenland, they sort of get caught a lot in that Notre Dame Bay, which is Twillingate, Fogo, Morton's Harbor, all around the circle.
Wow, I think this is my favorite picture, Hannah. I don't know where you found that, but it was absolutely outstanding. No question about it. This is the Heritage Center in Twillingate that we'll have a chance to visit for sure. And after that, coming up, we're going to be seeing the Auk Island Winery and have a chance to obviously do a wine tasting, but also a beer tasting with iceberg beer, which I understand is a very, very fresh lager. So looking forward to trying that. We'll be going to the Interpretive Fish Center and learning about, in this stop, we're learning about really what fishing there is all about. It's such an important part of the history, so we'll take some time to learn that for sure.
Oh, can I say something? See those little buildings there?
Yeah.
That would be called a room, kind of, right? So that's where the fisherman keeps his tackle and all his gear and his nets and all that. And some of them are more elaborate, but that's what the rooms is named after.
Fantastic.
Those are really basic rooms there, but you know.
Do they just store things, Kathy, or do people actually sleep there? Or?
No, but the fisherman would go in there and do all his mending over the winter. He'd get his nets all ready, you know, to go. And, you know, when you talk about going into a fishery, the fishery is everything in Newfoundland. And when they say fish, they assume that you know that they're talking about cod. There is nothing but cod. Cod is God in Newfoundland. And Bonavista is where all my folks, the Irish coast, you're around the French coast down the Northern Peninsula. Now you're getting out towards where all the Irish came, and Bonavista is there. So you're going to come to that in a minute.
Great, thank you. So after Twillingate, we're going to make our way down to Port Rexton. And here we have 2 nights at the Fisher's Loft Inn. And this, I think, will be one of the highlights of the whole trip. It's a beautiful, beautiful inn. They're really well known for their food. So we're going to be treated to some just spectacular meals, all locally produced. Vegetables, of course, local fish, and just outstanding wines. So I think that our stay there is going to be really, really special. No question about that. That was one of the things that we were most excited about. The date was planned around the dates that we could get into this hotel. So there you go. And from Port Rexton, it's a really good area to head out and do some touring. So we'll be heading up to Bonavista. Kathy?
Oh, Bonavista is where John Cabot discovered Newfoundland. He discovered North America. Well, not North America, but he was headed towards looking for North America for the English. He's an Italian, John Cabot. And in 1497, he spotted land and Bonavista, a good view. And so he named Cape Bonavista. That's the first point that they made in 1497 that John, and here you're seeing the wild Newfoundland ponies. They have a huge sanctuary out on that peninsula as well. It's a really old part of Newfoundland. You're going to find it's beautiful, nice hiking, not too hard, puffins all over the place. You'll love it out there.
Terrific, thank you. Some shots of some of the things that we're going to see. We're in Bonavista. And then we're going to make our way into Trinity and have a look at charming Trinity, wonderful artisan shops there. You'll notice, actually, this is nice. It's the first time we've used the word shop on a Women with Wings itinerary. So that'll tell you this is not a shopping tour, other than our local artisans and some really true craft projects. We won't be doing an awful lot of shopping. Here's charming Trinity. And I understand that the lupins there are absolutely out of this world, grow wild all over the place. And today we're going to have a chance to go kayaking, sea kayaking. And if that's not your thing, don't worry, we'll find something else for you to do. But I really would encourage you to give this a try. It will be very safe, it will be guided, everybody will be given instruction. We won't necessarily see a whale, as you see on the left-hand side of that, but you know, there's nothing better than seeing something from the water. And I truly hope we have a calm day and that we can just make the most of that. For sure. And then we'll be going back to Port Rexton that night to Fisher's Inn.
I can't imagine being in a kayak in Newfoundland and not seeing a whale, like being at that level of water. Because, you know, if you sit for 10 minutes and look out at the water at that time of year, you're going to see a whale.
Oh, love it. Love it. Love it. Okay, so on Thursday the 9th, we're going to make our way into St. John's, which is our last stop on the itinerary. And we're going to be staying at the Sheraton Hotel, which is right in the center of town, and which Kathy has said is absolutely the best place to be. We just have to walk outside and everything is right there. Go out the back of the hotel, and I think you said we're right on Signal Hill, Kathy?
You're right at the base of Signal. Well, you know, about 2 blocks and you walk up, and blocks are very short. You can just walk up to Signal Hill. I go up there. I stay at Newfoundland Hotel regularly, and I usually go up there for sunrise because you can look out and see the sun come up from Ireland, really. And that's the Battery there. If you do a hike around Signal Hill, where Marconi sent the first transatlantic message, you'll walk across some fella's deck there. That's part of the hike. Right there in that picture.
Love it. That's great. While we're in St. John's, we'll also be going to Kitividi, which can be pronounced, I think I saw 10 different ways today, but we'll use Kitividi.
Divide or Kitividi is the big argument in St. John's.
Yeah.
I think it might depend on what religion you are. I'm not sure.
That makes sense. That makes sense for sure. Okay, here's some shots of the hotel in St. John's. You can see it really is lovely. This is Signal Hill. We'll definitely be experiencing that. And St. John's is entirely walkable, which means that we'll have a chance to have some free time on our own as well and just wander and really enjoy the town city. And here we are. This is Kitividi, which is going to be probably our last excursion. And we'll be going into the brewery, tasting there's another shot of iceberg beer and their own brew, and make our way to Cape Spear. So we'll also be doing a cruise out of that area too, and that will sort of wind up our program. We always have a farewell dinner, no question at all. Here's a picture from the Ecological Reserve that we'll see.
That's Witless Bay, Witless, W-I-T-L-E-S-S, like he got no wits. Witless Bay Ecological Reserve. It's a beautiful area. You're going to love that. Great.
So there you go. Some of the wildlife which we're going to be seeing and which we understand is around every single corner and behind every single tree. So chance to see some wildlife, learn some history, hear about fishing, see some UNESCO World Heritage sites, and really learn about Newfoundland. We didn't talk about pubs in the presentation, but I guarantee you there'll be some pub time involved, and we've got some good ones in mind. So, so good food, good experiences, good friends, some history, some fishing, some boating, some kayaking, great hotels, good friends. I think it's going to be a great trip, and we hope that you'll be able to join us for sure. What we're going to do now is just sort of talk about some of the nuts and bolts of the trip. And of course, the first thing that we have to address is COVID, because I know everybody's, of course, concerned about it, as we should be. This tour will be 14 people total, and the bus that we have will either be 24 or 32 passengers. So we'll have lots of room for social distancing. It won't be a problem at all. We do insist that everybody be fully vaccinated in order to register for the tour. I'm sure that's not a surprise, but just to put your mind at rest about that. And we will observe any and all local protocols. So depending on what's going on in the province at that time, hopefully it won't be much, we'll be very mindful of that and respectful of that for sure. The next thing to talk about is insurance, and this is a big issue for sure. So on the itinerary package that you've got on page 4, we talk a little bit about cancellation insurance, and we have to address this because when we book a trip like this, we obviously are putting into contract that we will make payments by certain dates, and those payments are non-refundable. And having just come out of COVID and spent 18 months chasing refunds and doing everything we can to get everything we can back for clients, we know how respectful and honorable all of the tour companies have been. But they can't afford to go through that again. So I don't think that anybody's going to be in a position to be as lenient as they were the first time around. So what do we do about that? There is now cancel for any reason insurance, which allows you to cancel exactly as I said, for any reason up until 2 weeks before you go and get an 80% refund. It's not inexpensive, and I'll give you a quote if you expressed interest for sure, but we do think it's your best protection, so it's something to think about, and there aren't that many cancel for any reason policies out there. Ours is one of the few. So that's something to think about. Now, the other thing is, if you canceled less than 14 days before you go, let's say up to a week before you go, that is maxed out at $2,500. So it's no longer 80%, it's $2,500. And if it's within the last 24 hours, it's only, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I've drawn a blank, I'll come back to that. But the thing to keep in mind is if you did cancel within the last 2 weeks prior to departure, it would only be because there was a medical emergency. And if that were the case, you'd be paid out at 100% anyway. So we think this is actually very, very good coverage that you would at least get 80% of your money back. Now, hopefully it's not an issue. I think we're all learning that we have to live with COVID. By the time we're that much further into this, by the end of next May, there's going to be very few people that aren't vaccinated in, most of the places that we're going to be going. Everybody on our tour is going to be at least double vaccinated and possibly have a booster. So I realize it's something that you have to consider, but we don't think that the risk is too high, and it's certainly worth considering with this cancel for any reason insurance. Okay, so again, I'll go through that one by one as people express interest in the tour. And now Hannah's going to talk to us about airfares, how we get there and what it costs.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Cindy. So both WestJet and Air Canada fly over to, into Corner Brook or into Deer Lake and then out of St. John's. There's two options to fly into Deer Lake. It's either a red-eye flight that takes you into Toronto in the morning, and then you transfer in the morning from Toronto to Deer Lake, and you get there around 1 p.m. Or you can take a flight that leaves in the afternoon from Vancouver, still transferring through Toronto, but you arrive into Deer Lake at about midnight. And Kathy's told us that everyone in Newfoundland is aware of the late transfers, so the hotel will know to expect you, so that won't be a problem. And then leaving out of St. John's on your last flight, it leaves around noon as well, and you get back home around 5 p.m., again, transferring through Toronto. So nice and easy flights. It's up to you if you'd rather have that late arrival into Deer Lake or mid-afternoon, depending on if you want to have another half day to explore Corner Brook. Like Cindy said, we'll help arrange transfers as well from the airport to your hotel in Corner Brook. You can expect to pay around between $900 and $1,200 for both of those flights. That's round trip. That depends on if you want to include your checked luggage, seat selection, or if you want to have a little bit more comfortable in the premium economy seating. Something to mention, Cindy said earlier that the suppliers are now not as lenient as they were last year. That's particular with Air Canada and WestJet. They used to have a zero change fee, but now they're implementing their change fee again. So what we're seeing is that these tickets are non-refundable for the most part. If you need to cancel, the funds will be held in a future travel credit. and you have to use that credit for 1 year tomorrow, October 21st, and you needed to cancel it on October 22nd, for instance, you could use your flight up until October 21st, 2022. We can help book your flights if you'd like. We charge a small service fee of $65. And if you have points like RBC or Aeroplan, we can help arrange that as well for an additional fee. I think that's all about flights, Cindy.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. If somebody wanted to go in on WestJet and come out on Air Canada or vice versa, are they going to end up paying more than if they went in both directions with the same carrier?
It's not too much more. I did a calculation today. It's only about $50 difference.
Great. Okay, I think that's really good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I guess the only other question I had is to do with the credit. You said the ticket could be used, but is it actually the value of the ticket that can be used on any trip for a year, or do they have to go back to Newfoundland?
They can travel anywhere that the airlines travel to. So you can go use that credit to Europe if you want to. You don't have to go back to Newfoundland. But the travel does have to commence in 1 year. So you would have to start your travel by October 21st, 2022. You don't have to finish the whole trip by that point.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's interesting. That's a really good example of how quickly the rules are changing now.
Can I just say that it also mixing airlines might help you if you're trying to use points, because you could use one-way points maybe and then buy a ticket the other way.
Yeah,
just a possibility if you have points and you want to try to save some money with them or use them up or something.
Sounds great.
Kathy.
Okay, so giving you lots and lots of information tonight. I hope it's been helpful. Hope you've got a better idea of what it's all about. You know, we recognize that this tour is not inexpensive, but it's very, very inclusive. So we've learned over the years that a lot of the women with wings ladies just want it done. They want it taken care of. They don't want to have to think about gratuities. We include as many meals as we can while still leaving some free so that you can do your own thing, or perhaps you just don't even want to have a meal that night. But we've included tours everywhere, gratuities everywhere we go, which is, you know, makes things that much more convenient, interesting accommodations, and we think a great program. So hope you're interested. We'd love to hear from you. And it looks like we've got one question here.
We do, yeah. One lady has asked, do we get to see the horses?
If the horses are there, we'll see them.
So it is wild, you know, they're wild horses. So
Yeah.
there's no, you can't corral them or anything. That's the Dungeon Park, I believe, Dungeon Provincial Park. But there seems to be a lot of photos of horses in Dungeon. So I'm thinking you might.
I remember we went chasing horses, small horses in Iceland when we were there. Didn't have any success, but we'll try. I promise you we'll try. Okay, any other questions at all?
That's it. Let's come into the Q&A. But if anyone does have any questions, feel free to email them to Cindy.
Thank you so much for joining us. Hannah, thank you. Kathy, thank you. We hope that you got lots of information. I wish you all the very best. We'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Good night.
Thank you so much, everyone. Good night.